My name is Alvin. This is Situational Mindset. I am a 20-year military veteran. I have almost a decade in law enforcement, and I like making videos on situational awareness. Situational awareness is not just tactical, but it is practical, and it's something that you should be implementing into your everyday life. But with that being said, I got a video for you. I came across this about a week ago, and it's just a crazy story. This guy, he was pretending to be a cop, but and these stories happen, right? You see these stories a lot, and but you don't really see them like this, where somebody's pretending to be a cop and they are trying to help the police.
Thompson, we begin with a man accused of impersonating an Edmonds police officer. That suspect is expected in Kitsap County Court this week. Bremerton police say they arrested him last week after he showed up at a police scene dressed as an officer wearing a fake badge, and that was only the beginning. Fox 13's Jennifer Dowling spoke to people who witnessed his arrest and has more from Bremerton.
Witnesses tell me that the man was arrested in the parking lot behind the Salvation Army shelter. They tell me that he was checking in residents to the shelter the night before. And those who saw the badge say it looked very real to the untrained eye.
Oh yeah, we saw the cops pull up and put him in silver handcuffs. It was quite interesting.
Jay Voigt is a resident at the Salvation Army shelter and witnessed the arrest of this man, Michael Scaletta Teague.
All right, so right off the bat, when you see a cop and somebody has on a uniform, SWAT officers, they wear their tactical uniform. I'm sure you've seen them on TV when something happens in your city or town. So right off the bat, he's wearing something that looks like a normal police uniform. However, it's not. It's nothing lines up here. He has on just like way too much gear. He's when somebody's pretending, they go way overboard and they are just doing way too much. But like I said, the crazy thing about this one that I wanted to bring your attention to is that, this guy is pretending to be a cop, but on top of that, this is just very important to know because I'm going to give you some tips at the end of this. If you feel that something's off, something's weird, how you can kind of deal with it.
Who's been accused of impersonating a police officer.
He pulled in. It was a dark blue SUV with tinted windows, could not see inside, and a very strange set of lights attached to the back of the vehicle and the sides.
They say his badge looked real.
He was wearing police gear.
And he checked people in at the shelter the night before.
He performed wand checks on everyone as a normal security guard would do, but he was very nervous.
Bremerton police got put on the case after they say he arrived at a police scene in an unmarked Ford Explorer with
All right, so something about these Ford Explorers, right? So as time passes, police departments, they get rid of cars, and those old police cars can end up, out on the street. However, one tip that it may not be a police car, it's not 100%, but police cars generally, they don't have the roof racks on top. They're normally just either slick tops or obviously there may be a light bar up there if it's a marked car. But what he's portraying here is an unmarked police car and has this roof rack. Also, most cities are cheap and they're not gonna, and I say cheap because it's just not a priority to have a car with nice wheels on it. So that's like kind of another giveaway because generally it's going to be some hubcaps because this car might get into a pursuit or chase or whatever the case may be. And that's just an extra expense if you have nice rims versus just some spare tire looking rims.
blue police lights. He identified himself to police as an off-duty Edmonds police detective, and they say he wore body armor and a metallic Edmonds police badge. Police say they investigated and learned he was a convicted felon who had been running security for a nearby business while committing law enforcement acts in the downtown corridor. He was taken into custody with a firearm and a large amount of police equipment.
And that right there alone, the fact that thankfully he didn't hurt anybody and didn't do anything is one thing, but the fact that he's going around trained to be a police officer. He's a convicted felon. He's not supposed to have a gun anyway, and he's working security. So he's, a wannabe cop, and you have a lot of wannabe cops. But there's a difference between somebody who wants to be a cop and somebody who's got a vehicle with lights on it, who's dressed up, who's wearing a SWAT badge, who's going to the trouble, in the world of the internet to get something, a badge that looks authentic. But I mean, this is just kind of part of this, and it goes a little deeper. There's a secondary story on this.
Tonight, a man accused of pretending.
This guy was
that
a
I want to show you.
felon who a judge said today poses a real risk to the community. From a police uniform to a jail jumpsuit, Michael Tietz now facing felony charges alleging he impersonated a police officer here in Bremerton.
While Mr. Scaletta Tietz does not have any in-state criminal history, he does have rather significant out-of-state criminal history.
A police report says a Bremerton officer responded to a call of a fire in this parking garage. When he got to the scene, he saw what looked like an undercover police car pulling up behind him with flashing blue lights. The officer says Tietz got out and identified himself as an off-duty Edmonds police officer.
So, like I said, I wanted to do this story because I just think that's wild. You got some real gumption to roll up to an active scene where first responders are there trying to handle it, and you're a fake cop, and then you're going to just roll up. But the crazy thing about this one is that this wasn't his first time doing this. He had responded to a number of different incidents, and somehow he got by, and the local law enforcement didn't, I guess, realize or recognize. I mean, also too, like, he went out of his way, because look, if you look at the back of this vehicle, you can see badging. A lot of cities, they mark their vehicles so they'll know what vehicle it is. And he's really done a lot of work. But there's something that he says within his interview that I think is just crazy, and it's something that you just really got to see.
Who was working a security job nearby at the Salvation Army. The officer noticed Tietz had a full uniform with police and SWAT patches, handcuffs, and a body camera. The officer says he got talking with Tietz and his story didn't add up, including claims that he'd worked for the Baltimore Police, then the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, and now had been a gang detective with Edmonds for 2 years. Police say it was all a lie.
I did work as security there.
And he was employed.
And that's what it was right there. You're being a fake cop, you're a felon with a gun, you've done all of these crazy things, but the one thing that you want to tell the judge that I really was working security. Not that I'm sorry for portraying to be a cop or anything like that. So that tells you right there, this guy is not really fully there in the head, and that his delusional fantasy of wanting to be a cop, but first of all, he could never do, it's something that he could never do. He's a convicted felon. So you're a convicted felon in 99% of this country. There may be some crazy loophole out there that I'm not aware of, but he could not be a cop, but he was willing to go to great lengths.
Investigators tracked down the security company Tietz was working for. The boss said Tietz was absolutely not allowed to have a gun or police markings, and he wasn't supposed to leave the Salvation Army property.
The state referenced that there's information that he was harassing members of the community under the authority of law, and from what I understand, he was only engaging with police officers.
Prosecutors said Tietz's prior felonies prohibit him from possessing a gun and say his actions of impersonating a cop are a threat to the community.
He is alleged to have used false authority to harass members of the community. So the state has serious concerns over his of the safety of the community given those actions.
But then it's also, did you not realize the cameras were in the courtroom? You're coming out and you want to cover your face up. But the main gist of this story is that these type of things happen. And this is one of those situational awareness things where if you're out and about and all of a sudden you're driving and some flashing lights come on behind you, be mindful of where you are, especially if the vehicle looks off. If you should be familiar with the police vehicles in your town, so you know what they look like. And I mean, granted, most police departments are going to have some form or type of unmarked vehicles. They may be totally unmarked. Some of them have the vehicles where if you look at them from an angle, you can see the decals on the side. They're kind of like covert, but still marked. But at the end of the day, I got a few tips here for you that you can do. And, if you get pulled over, if you think you're being pulled over by the the police officers, just make sure that if you're leery about the situation, it just doesn't seem right, turn on your hazards lights. You can just do this and then keep your hands on the wheel, tending to pull over somewhere. If you just happen to be in the populated area, pull over into a gas station parking lot, pull over where there's somewhere that other people are going to see this interaction. Also try to remain calm. Another thing that you can do is, call 911, because if you call the 911 dispatch, they're going to be able to tell you, yes, that is an officer that is pulling you over. And at the end of the day, maybe the officer may get a little upset that you call 911, because unfortunately it does happen. But I've just never had it happen where somebody was calling to verify I was an officer. They were just calling because they were upset they got pulled over, which is not a legitimate reason to call 911. But you can always ask to make sure you see the officer's badge. You can all police have some type of ID card. Some states also carry a card that proves that they're a sworn law enforcement officer in that state. And just another way to get to know your local police department, you can join attempt to join, if they have one, the Citizens Police Academy. If your department has that, the Citizens Police Academy, what it's going to do is like a micro version of what it's like to go to the police academy, and they're going to give you a little bit of instruction on everything that they would give a police recruit. Most likely you would get some kind of, also get to see some kind of K9 demonstration, some type of SWAT demonstration. You may even get to go to the gun range, and they may show you some things there. It can vary by state whether they actually let you shoot something or not. That's just all depends. But by doing this, you're going to get to know your local department, get an ideal of how they operate, and it's just going to make for a better experience for you, because the only way crimes really get solved is that there's a partnership between the community and the police department. Things just don't magically happen, because when people don't cooperate, crimes, unfortunately, it makes it very difficult to get solved. It doesn't mean that it's impossible, but having that mutual understanding, especially with, there's so much negativity in the media when surrounding law enforcement. So that's going to help you out. But this is just something that I wanted to bring you tonight. Just a little situational awareness, so that you know that, hey, if I'm being pulled over by a police officer or not, those are some things that you can do. But make sure at the end of the day that you do your best to stay situationally aware of your environment, starting by, do your best to not do anything that will get you pulled over in the first place, which is just going to be beneficial to you. But if you have any questions, you can always drop them in the comments. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. I have a number of videos on here on things that you can do to be more situationally aware. Also, some scams that kind of go on, whether that's digital or, people tracking you. And also, there's just also things going on in the finance market as well, as far as your safety and security is concerned, making sure that you keep those things intact. But that's all I got for you tonight. If you have any questions, like I said, drop them in the comments. And I appreciate you dropping by. But until next time, stay vigilant.